Right on with well, the good news that Vladimir Zelensky is in the country today. We've captioned this: "Is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me?" Because they were giving each other hugs and kisses as Zelensky got off the plane this morning. Zelensky is currently, as we speak, giving some kind of presentation in Westminster Hall in Parliament, and so the House of Commons was suspended for that, so that everybody could attend. So what are they going to be talking about? Well, apparently this is all about the UK stepping up its delivery of lethal aid to Ukraine and preparing to train fighter jet pilots and Marines, as well as the cannon fodder that we've been training so far.
This is just nonsense, Mike. Aircraft, F-16s, this is nonsense. Training Marines on the ground, this is also nonsense, but I'll cover a little bit today.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it a bit more later on. And apparently Rishi Sunak is going to be offering Ukraine longer range capabilities. No explanation of exactly what that means.
I was just going to say, with the love-in of this picture, the one thing that is clearly excluded is anything to do with the people in UK. Prime Minister and Zelensky hugging each other. They're not interested in anything to do with what's happening in this country or the people in this country.
No. Okay. Well, yesterday's news, of course, was that there was a reshuffle, and some government departments were. A new one was created. We now have a Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, one government department was split, which was Culture, Media and Sport, now reverts to Culture, Media and Sport, and Digital has been taken out to create a new Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. The Right Honourable Lucy Fraser, KCMP, becomes Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and apparently that is going to be all about focusing on supporting our world-leading cultural and creative industries to thrive and creating a broadcasting and media system fit for the 21st century. I'm not sure why government feels the need to create that, other than the fact that they want to be in control of the narrative. But Michelle Donelan then is moved from DCMS to this new Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. And she takes the online safety bill with her. So she will be pursuing that because we've got to keep the British people, especially children, safe online. So that's good news. So anyway, bit of a reshuffle yesterday, and it was really only, I thought, interesting in the sense of the online safety bill. We'll see how that progresses through Parliament over the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, the Bank of England and the Treasury have announced a new digital pound. This is the central bank digital currency. They've announced a consultation paper on it. We'll come on to the consultation itself in a second. So this is what they're saying. Let's have a look at some of the content from this document that they've published. First of all, they're saying that cash payments have declined while card use has accelerated, and therefore we might as well roll out a central bank digital currency. Yes, they have a model for the digital pound. It's going to be a public-private partnership. Of course it is. Anybody that doesn't understand the implications of this, have a search on the UK Column website for Ian Davis's article on the global public-private partnership. It's going to be used by households and businesses. It's going to be public digital money issued by a central platform operated by the Bank of England, and so on. You can read through those yourselves. But the one that I found interesting there, down the bottom left, the Bank of England and the government would not see any personal data. This is their claim. So let's have a look at a little bit of the text. Private sector companies, which could be banks or approved non-bank firms, would be able to integrate into the central digital pound infrastructure and provide the interface between the bank, that's the Bank of England, and users, that's you and I. They would do this by offering digital pass-through wallets to end users. The wallets would be integrated into their other services. They're known as pass-through wallets, hereafter referred simply as wallets, because the user's holdings of digital pounds are recorded anonymously on the bank's core ledger in order to safeguard their privacy, and the wallet simply passes instructions to the user from the user to the core ledger. So that's the claim. It's all going to be perfectly private. There's not going to be any efforts, David, to perhaps direct people's behavior in certain directions by
how they spend their money.
Exactly, yes.
So what you're telling me, Mike, is even if the government, say, suspected there was taxation fraud going on, and they could use this data or acquire data from this system in order to stamp down on this reprehensible behaviour by entirely criminal organisations, or maybe people were engaging in commerce that the government didn't approve of and they wanted to stamp down on that. They wouldn't do it because they promised. Is that what we've been asked to believe?
Yes. And why would you disbelieve it? It's the government.
Well, call me cynical, Mike, but I seem to remember them saying one or two things before that turned out not to be true.
Indeed. So let's just remind ourselves what's driving this. And of course, it begins with the Bank for International Settlements. Here's Benoît Cœuré. The financial system is shifting under our feet, he said a couple of years ago. The time has passed for central banks to get going. This is the kind of architecture we're talking about. Digital central bank money coming in two forms: wholesale central bank digital currencies and retail central bank digital currencies. The wholesale are for interbank money transfers, and the retail are for us to use on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about a public-private partnership, HSBC, very keen to get involved in that. And just so we understand the scale, HSBC is working with central banks in the United Kingdom, France, Canada, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE to explore plans for digital currencies. And it's not just on this side of the Atlantic. Jerome Powell here, the Fed is working proactively to evaluate whether to issue a CBDC, and if so, in what form. And back in November, they launched a 12-week CBDC pilot program with major banks. So they're clearly thinking along the same lines of a public-private partnership. But it goes even further because, of course, back in November last year, this was a core tenet of a core item at the G20 Bali summit. We welcome the successful completion of the G20 TechSprint 2022, they said, a joint initiative with the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, which has contributed to the debate on the most practical and feasible solutions to implement CBDCs. And we should just briefly look at what else was on that, because I think if we consider what I'm about to show you, this is all part of the same policy. So vaccine passports were also being discussed. Digital ID, of course, goes hand in hand with CBDCs. So vaccine passports and mRNA vaccines, expressions of the same policy, in my opinion. And also, let's remember that Rishi wants to renew the City of London's position as the world's preeminent financial centre because, as Mark Carney said a couple of years ago, we'll not get to net zero in a niche. It requires a whole economy transition. But let's have a look at the Economic Affairs Committee. Just over a year ago, publishing this Central Bank Digital Currencies, a Solution in Search of a Problem was what they were calling their report. And they were discussing some of the security risks posed by CBDC. First of all, they said individual accounts could be compromised through weaknesses in cybersecurity. Second, the centralized CBDC ledger, which would be a critical piece of national infrastructure, could be a target for attack from hostile state and non-state actors. While no design can guarantee absolute security, any CBDC system will need to be adaptable to emerging security threats and so on. There may be some benefits, they said, to wholesale CBDCs. The committee recommends that the Joint Task Force consults on the case for a wholesale CBDC alongside its 2022 retail CBDC consultation. And finally, the point that I wanted to highlight out of this was that Britain needs to be taking the lead, is what they were saying. So they were raising, David, a couple of potential issues with it, but absolutely pushing forward with the notion that Britain needs to be out front, telling the rest of the world how to do it.
Of course, the underlying assumption here is that the banking system is your friend, right? Which is fine unless you've had any experience of the banking system, in which case you might not be convinced that that's the case. So what we have at the moment with cash is we have the ability to take our money out of the system. There is this glorious and beautiful thing called the bank run, which is basically the loss of confidence on the part of the people in the institutions. And when this happens, the people can actually bring down the institutions via the bank run. And they can certainly withdraw the money and they can hold it in the mattress, under the mattress, whatever hiding place you prefer. Now, this prevents certain things that the government, until recently, certainly wanted to do, like negative interest rate policy. If you hold reserves of money, those reserves dwindle not just via inflation, but dwindle in absolute terms to encourage you to spend your money to stimulate the economy. This is a policy decision that they wanted to have. The reason that we have a target of 2% interest rate, 2% inflation and not 0% inflation is so that they can set real interest rates negative and essentially erode savings and encourage people to spend more when they want to do this. This is, of course, them controlling your economic decisions and stealing your money. All of this becomes much more feasible with a central bank digital currency because you can't exit the banking system with your resources. This is a loss of freedom, is it not?
Yes, it is. But we just should mention that they are absolutely, just as they're saying they're going to protect our privacy, they're saying that cash will remain. So in the meantime, cash is still there. We should encourage people to continue to use cash as much as possible. But just to finish this little segment, the consultation itself begins with the question or the statement, the digital pound, a new form of money for households and businesses, consultation response. So they're inviting views on the consultation paper. The deadline for responses is the 7th of June. But people shouldn't wait until then. Let's get the responses in now. Here's the address if you want to do that. Well, I just would encourage everybody to get involved in that because this is probably the most, in terms of a policy, the most critical consultation that we've seen in quite a long time.
We can also say that we are seeing some really good things happening. We know there are shops now designating themselves as cash-only shops, and this is quite something. It shows some real confidence in shop owners, albeit I believe small shops, private shops, that are saying, no, we're not going to play this game. We're going to go the other way and say we're delighted to receive customers and cash.
So